I'd like to call the meeting to order, folks. Thank everybody for coming tonight. If we're not speaking loud enough up here tonight, the mics are only for the cable use. If you can't hear anybody, please ask, and I will ask them to speak a little bit louder. I thank everybody for coming. At this time, I'll ask the town clerk to read the article, the warrant.
To either of the constables of the town of Rutland and the county of Worcester, in the name of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, you are hereby directed to notify and warn the inhabitants of said town, qualified to vote in elections and in town affairs, to meet at the Rutland Public Library at 280 Main Street in said Rutland on Monday, the 12th day of March 2018, at 7 o'clock in the evening, there and then to vote on the following article.
Thank you. At this time, I'd like to have everyone rise and we'll salute the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Just a few housekeeping rules. Everybody that is a voter should have a green card. Those that don't have a green card, please do not try to raise your hand and trick my counters tonight. If you choose to speak, we're going to ask you to come up to the podium in front of us. And again, that is just for the cable, so please speak loud so everyone can hear for you tonight. And we're going to try to keep things moving along. Article 1, to see if the town will vote to amend the town's zoning bylaws by adding a new Article 12, temporary moratorium on recreational marijuana establishments that would provide, as shown on a handout entitled Article 12, temporary moratorium on recreational marijuana establishments, and further to amend the table of contents to add Article 12, temporary moratorium on recreational marijuana establishment, or take any action in relation thereto.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to amend the town's zoning bylaw by adding a new Article 12, temporary moratorium on recreational marijuana establishments that would provide, as shown on the handout titled Article 12, temporary moratorium on recreational marijuana establishments, and further to amend the table of contents to add Article 12, temporary moratorium on recreational marijuana establishments.
Second.
A motion was made and seconded. Recommendation of the finance, please.
Mr. Moderator, the Finance recommends favorably on this article.
At this time, discussion, but I will start with the town administrator to give us some brief notes on yes and a no vote.
The article presented this evening proposes enacting a temporary moratorium zoning bylaw on recreational marijuana establishments until December 31st, 2018. Passage of the motion requires an affirmative vote of 2/3 of the voters present and voting. A yes vote on the motion would temporarily pause recreational marijuana establishment activity in Rutland until the end of December 2018 in order to provide the town time to thoroughly examine and understand the new state law and regulations, conduct public outreach sessions, and plan for potential implementation of local bylaws to regulate the time, place, and manner of recreational marijuana establishments in Rutland in a way that is acceptable to the community. Any such bylaws and acceptance of a 3% local option sales tax on marijuana retailers operating in Rutland would require town meeting approval. A no vote on the motion would allow recreational marijuana establishments in Rutland, subject to compliance with already existing local bylaws once the state's Cannabis Control Commission, CCC, begins accepting applications on April 1st, 2018, and begins issuing licenses to operate marijuana establishments as early as June 1st. Applications will be accepted for determinations of completeness under the license categories cultivator, craft marijuana cooperative, microbusiness, product manufacturer, independent testing laboratory, storefront retailer, third-party transporter, existing licensee transporter, and research facility. Your town meeting handout includes information on the new state law and draft regulations as of January 2018, descriptions of marijuana establishment license categories, and the role of municipalities. The CCC just adopted final regulations last Monday, March 5th, and filed them with the Secretary of State on Friday. The regulations will become effective when published in the Massachusetts Register, which is expected on March 23rd. You can view the regulations at mass-cannabis-control.com.
Thank you, Margaret. Is there any discussion on this article? Is there any discussion on this article? I only go 3 times, folks. I'm just warning you now, so.
Rachel Dolan, Ware Road. I was kind of hoping town council would be here, but because they're not, I'll do my best to try and clarify my point. I understand this is a temporary moratorium, but it covers all marijuana businesses recreationally. My concern is we have a Rutland right to farm bylaw, which stands. Section 2 of the bylaw. Production, cultivation, growing and harvesting of any agricultural, aquacultural, floricultural, viticultural, or horticultural commodities. Section 4, precedents. In the event of conflict between this bylaw and all other town regulations, this bylaw shall take precedence. In the event of conflict between this bylaw and federal or state law shall take precedence respectfully. What I was hoping town council could clarify, since marijuana cultivation is legal in the state of Massachusetts with the proper licenses, even if this is a temporary ban, aren't we violating our own right to farm bylaw? That was my question.
Good point.
I have gotten a legal opinion on that, but it was about a month ago, so I'm going to have to just search and get you the answer to that.
As I noted, I understand this moratorium is for all businesses, but since cultivation is separated under the right to farm bylaw, I'm not sure we're doing ourselves any favor legally. Some issues may come up down the road because of our decision to ban cultivation as part of this moratorium. Thank you.
So just to clarify, we'll get back to you in a few moments when she does her email to response to that. Is that right?
It's a search.
Search.
Pete Lutsky, 7 Village Way. I just want to make a few comments on this whole business. Has anyone given any thought to the Colorado problems that this is conducted into Colorado? Does our police department have the ability to check for impaired driving under the influence of marijuana? I don't believe they do. Is it legal for state subdivisions of government, town governments, to overrule the federal laws concerning marijuana usage and the legality of it? And isn't marijuana a stepping point for the next level of drugs? I just want to make the points. I'm done.
Is there any other discussion?
Just have a quick question.
State your name and
Carol
address, please.
Martens, Pleasantdale Road. Are we voting on everything that has to do with this, or more on sales outlets?
This moratorium would cover all commercial
So it
activities.
would cover all. And then the second item would be, no matter the cultivation and all that, I understand that. This is basically just so we can study it until the state makes a final decision. And they may say, towns, have some rights. Is that correct?
Yes.
You gotta speak louder, that's just for the.
Oh,
that's
yeah.
just for the-
Okay, so the state regulations do give towns some rights, but if you look at that information packet that's here tonight, the handout, it gets into the role of municipalities and what the rights and responsibilities of the municipalities are.
Crystal Roy, Michael Drive. I would just like to understand what our risks are with not passing this moratorium. Are we currently at risk if the state issues a license to someone that we could have someone in town rent their facility to a licensed individual and they could start a shop anywhere? Or are there guidelines against zoning for school zones, for example? Do we know that?
Planning?
Peter's got the info.
Talking on behalf of planning board, correct?
No, he's not a member of the planning board. We should get the.
I know I speak loudly enough that you can all hear me without it, but I want for the cable audience, when they get to see this, to hear as well. My name is Peter Crane. I live at 6 Nate's Way. I'm actually the person who transcribed the moratorium, and I've been looking into this for the board, the bylaw review subcommittee, and a couple other bodies as well. This moratorium is intended to be a simple pause in everything that can happen. If this moratorium fails tonight, then starting April 1st, anyone who applies to the Cannabis Control Commission for an otherwise legal by the state's regulations license for any recreational marijuana business, the town has no protection and no right and no ability to stop or regulate it. The state of the town's bylaw on the date of application is what rules the day with the Cannabis Control Commission. And since they accept applications on April 1st, then everything from April 1st until we have some form of bylaw cannot be prevented by this town.
In any location?
There are some locations that are forbidden by state law. If I remember correctly, it's within 500 feet of a school. And I believe that they have a restriction that you can't have a home business, is that correct?
Well, the state regulations say no less than
It's
no
less than
greater
500.
than 500 feet. The town does not have the ability to expand that buffer. But if I could, is Norm here by any chance? Could we?
Norman Anderson?
If he could speak to the zoning bylaws and where that would be allowed without regulation.
Okay, if this
Norman Anderson is chairman of the planning board.
if this moratorium were to fail, basically outside of the restriction of distance from schools, anyone could apply for a license to open up a marijuana facility in any of our zoning districts that allow any kind of business. So that would include the town center district, which takes in the sphere part of Main Street, Maple Ave, and so forth. The village center districts, which are Four Corners and North Rutland. We have several industrial, light industrial, office zones, and some miscellaneous other business areas that are as a result of past spot zoning. Those would all be wide open. Most of these places also border residential areas. So we'd have just very, very little control. And I'm assuming there would still be a special permit process, although, no, we don't.
You would follow the regulations that are set forth by the statute, by the state.
Yeah, I don't even know if that would be special permit or just site plan review.
What the regulations,
It's gonna be close to tie.
That's why we need more time. So we need to know the answers to the questions.
Does that answer the question? To the best of their ability?
The other, thank you. And my other risk question too is if we don't pass it and we then decide to go after and add extra tax, can we go back and collect that tax from the people that were already licensed, or are those already?
yeah, so the regulations, or the statute allows a 3% local options tax on marijuana retailers only. So it's a sales tax on top of the state sales tax. And yes, the town could actually adopt that after marijuana retailers are in place and operating. I think as a best practice, we might want to be proactive about that, but the town could go back and actually vote that.
Is there any other discussion?
Janice Pierce, Wachusett Street. Representative Berthium's wife was in to one of the sites today, And I asked her about this meeting, and she said each town in the state of Massachusetts has the right to or not to have any kind of pot shop in their town. So we wouldn't be illegal if we said, no, no one can sell it in town.
That's correct.
Just a point.
One of the sorry. One of the bylaws that the town could choose to enact would be an outright ban on commercial marijuana operations altogether. So there are a number of options the town can avail itself of. You could set, for example, you could set hours in which marijuana facilities operate. You could set the locations where marijuana facilities operate. You could actually establish the types of marijuana facilities. And again, in your information packet, it lists all the license categories, and I read those earlier too. So there are a number of options available to the town with that.
Is there any other discussion? Is there any other discussion? Is there any other discussion? Hearing none, we are now going to vote.
I'm sorry.
There is no answer. She could not find her on her email, and she will get back to Ms. Dolan at a short time.
Maybe Anita will put in an email blast.
So we are going to vote, and we're going to use our green cards, and it's a 2/3 vote. So I have Mr. Joe Becker that will do the left-hand side, and Mr. Scott Davis will do the right-hand side. And I'm going to ask you to stand. No, I guess I'm going to ask you to just raise your cards and leave your cards up until you're counted, please. All those in favor of the article, and does everybody understand what they are voting on and what a yes is and what a no is? Does everybody understand that for the most part? We're going to vote yes. All those in favor of yes, you must have a green card and it must be in the air if you choose to vote. You need a green card.
To celebrate it. It was such a good thing. Did you do him? Yes. Okay.
All those opposed, same sign, please raise your cards.
So tell me Michelle didn't vote.
You're being pointed out for something, Tommy. He didn't see you raise your card on either, that's why.
It's my business.
That's right, that's right. I agree. You can abstain.
I am just currently confirming how many people checked in to make sure that we, for some ungodly reason, that we don't have a surplus, and I've got to do a little bit of math.
Well, this could be a while.
That's why. Pick it up on the mic. Maybe she doesn't publicly vote because of the position she doesn't have to.
Folks, by your vote, there was 62 yeses, 16 noes, total of 78 people. You need a 51 or greater to pass it. You have 62 votes. Article 1 has passed with a yes vote.
Motion for adjournment?
What's that?
Motion for adjournment?
So moved. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed. Thank everybody for coming tonight.